The vast emptiness of space surrounded the human starship Horizon as it drifted at the edge of uncharted territory. Captain Mark Reed stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the viewscreen where a massive alien vessel had just appeared. It was unlike anything humans had ever seen. Dark purple metal curved into sharp angles, with weapon ports visible along its hull. "Sir, they're hailing us," said Officer Taylor, her fingers hovering over the communications panel. Reed straightened his uniform. "Open the channel." The screen flickered, revealing a tall, gray-skinned alien with 4 yellow eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. Ridges of bone protruded from its skull, and its mouth was filled with small pointed teeth. "Human vessel," the alien spoke in a deep, rumbling voice. "This is Commander Drav of the Krell Empire. You have entered restricted space. Identify yourselves, or be destroyed." Reed nodded calmly. "I am Captain Mark Reed of the Earth exploration vessel Horizon. We are peaceful explorers, Commander Drav. We had no knowledge this area was claimed territory." Drav's upper eyes narrowed. "Your ignorance does not excuse your trespass. Perhaps we could discuss this matter in person," Reed suggested. "I invite you aboard our ship to share a meal and talk about establishing friendly relations between our peoples." The alien commander paused, clearly surprised by the offer. On his own bridge, Drav turned to his second-in-command, who shook his head in warning. "You invite me onto your vessel," Drav finally responded. "Either you are fools or you possess great confidence in your defenses." Reed smiled. "Neither, Commander. We simply believe in diplomacy before conflict." After a moment of consideration, Drav nodded. "Very well. I will bring a small security team. Any sign of treachery, and my ship will open fire." "Understood. We'll prepare a welcoming party." 2 hours later, the airlock doors on the Horizon slid open. Commander Drav stepped through with 3 armed guards, each carrying what looked like energy weapons. Captain Reed waited with 2 unarmed officers and a small golden-furred creature that sat obediently at his feet. Drav's hand immediately went to his weapon. "What is that beast?" Reed looked down and laughed. This is Buddy, our ship's mascot. He's a golden retriever puppy, completely harmless." As if understanding he was being discussed, Buddy stood up, his tail wagging happily. He trotted forward toward the aliens, tongue lolling out of his mouth. The alien guards raised their weapons, and Drav barked an order in his native language. The guards froze but kept their weapons ready. "Call your creature back," Drav demanded. Reed whistled softly, and Buddy returned to his side. "He's just friendly, Commander. Dogs have been human companions for thousands of years. They're loyal, intelligent, and excellent judges of character." Drav studied the small animal with obvious suspicion. "On my world, small creatures are often the most venomous. I assure you, Buddy is harmless. He's just a puppy, not even fully grown yet." The commander followed Reed through the corridors of the Horizon, his guards scanning everything with small devices. Crew members nodded respectfully as they passed, though many couldn't help but stare at the alien visitors. In the conference room, Reed offered seats around a large table. Buddy settled at Reed's feet, occasionally peering curiously at the aliens. "Now," Reed began, "let's discuss how our peoples can—" "Enough pleasantries," Drav interrupted. "You have violated Krell space. The penalty is severe." Reed maintained his calm. "We had no way of knowing." "Your ignorance is not my concern," Drav growled, standing to his full height. "Either you submit to Krell authority, or we will unleash the beast of our military might upon your vessel and your people." The room fell silent. Buddy, sensing the tension, gave a small whine and nudged Reed's hand with his nose. Reed scratched behind the puppy's ears, a small smile forming on his lips. "With all due respect, Commander," Reed said quietly, "I think we can find a better solution than threats." Drav's 4 eyes blinked in unison. "You find this amusing. You smile in the face of destruction." Reed looked down at Buddy, then back at the alien commander. "No, Commander. I simply believe that even the fiercest beasts can be tamed with patience and understanding. Commander Drav paced the deck of his ship, his clawed feet clicking against the metal floor. The meeting with the humans had not gone as expected. These soft creatures with their weak bodies should have cowered before the might of the Krell Empire. Instead, they had offered food and spoken of peaceful cooperation. "It must be a trap," said Officer Zord, Drav's trusted advisor. "No species invites potential enemies aboard their vessel." Drav stopped pacing. "What about the small furry creature? The one they call Buddy?" "I have been analyzing our scans," Zort replied, pulling up images on the main screen. "It appears to serve no obvious function. Yet the human captain keeps it close at all times." "A weapon, perhaps," Drav suggested. "Possibly. Its teeth are sharp, but small. It could be genetically engineered, a biological spy or assassin." Drav nodded slowly. "Arrange another meeting. I want to observe this dog more closely." Meanwhile, aboard the Horizon, Captain Reed sat in his quarters with Buddy curled up beside him. Lieutenant Taylor entered with a report in hand. "Sir, our analysis of the Krell ship shows their weapons are powered down, but they've maintained a defensive position." Reed scratched Buddy behind the ears. "What about their biology scans?" "Interesting results, Captain. The Krell evolved on a planet with massive predators. Their skeletal structure suggests they were prey species that developed intelligence as a survival strategy." Reed looked thoughtful. "So they view the universe as a constant threat." "Exactly. And there's something else," Taylor added. "They have no history of animal domestication. The concept of keeping animals as companions is completely foreign to them. That explains their reaction to Buddy," Reed said as the puppy rolled over for a belly rub. The next day, Commander Drav returned to the Horizon with a larger security detail. This time, Reed met them in the ship's garden, a large space filled with plants from Earth and several colony worlds. "Welcome back, Commander," Reed greeted. Drav's eyes immediately fixed on Buddy, who was sniffing around the base of a small tree. "Why do you allow your creature to roam freely? Is it not dangerous?" Reed smiled. "Not at all. He's just curious about his surroundings." As if to demonstrate, Buddy found a small ball and pushed it toward one of the Krell guards. The alien stepped back, raising his weapon slightly. "He wants to play," Reed explained. "Throw the ball for him." "Play." Drav repeated the word as if it were unfamiliar. The guard looked to Drav for instructions. After a moment, Drav nodded. Cautiously, the guard picked up the ball and tossed it a short distance. Buddy bounded after it, tail wagging furiously, and brought it back, dropping it at the guard's feet. The Krell soldiers exchanged confused glances. "What purpose does this serve?" Drav asked. "Fun. Exercise. Bonding," Reed replied. "Dogs and humans have worked together for thousands of years. They help us hunt, protect our homes, find people who are lost, and provide companionship." Drav's eyes narrowed. "So they are servants?" "No, more like partners. Friends." The word friends didn't translate properly in the Krell language. Drav received a message of useful allies instead. "I wish to speak with your leaders," Drav announced suddenly. "This alliance with the dogs sounds valuable." Reed tried not to smile. "I'm afraid you misunderstand. Dogs aren't another species we've allied with. They're animals we've domesticated." Domesticated. The translation system struggled again. "We took their wild ancestors, and over many generations, bred them to live with us peacefully." Horror spread across Drav's face. "You genetically manipulated another species to serve you." "Not exactly," Reed began, but he could see the damage was done. Drav backed away. "We were right to be cautious. Your people are more dangerous than we thought." He turned to his guards. "Return to the ship immediately." As the Krell hurried toward the airlock, Buddy trotted after them, still hoping to continue their game. One of the guards turned and pointed his scanner at the puppy. "Sir," the guard called to Drav. The creature's brain shows unusual development for an animal, and its emotional patterns are complex. Drav looked from the puppy to Captain Reed. What have you done to these beings? Reed sighed. This first contact was getting more complicated by the minute. Commander, I think we need to start over, he said. There's clearly been a misunderstanding. But Drav was already leaving, his mind filled with thoughts of humans who could bend other species to their will. The Krill warship loomed larger in the view screen as it moved closer to the horizon. Captain Reed stood on the bridge, his face grim as he watched 3 smaller Krill vessels take flanking positions. They've raised their shields, reported Officer Chen from the tactical station. Weapons systems are powering up. Reed sighed. Open a channel. Commander Drav's face appeared on screen, his 4 yellow eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of agitation among the Krill. Captain Reed. Drav's voice was cold. My advisors have analyzed the information we gathered about your dogs. We know the truth now. And what truth is that, Commander? Reed asked calmly. These creatures you call dogs are clearly advanced biological weapons. You have altered them to appear harmless while using them to influence and control other species. Reed rubbed his forehead. Commander, I assure you, no more lies. Drav slammed a clawed hand down. We witnessed how your officers respond to the small beast, how they obey when it approaches, how it can affect their emotions with a simple sound or movement. In the background behind Reed, Buddy trotted onto the bridge, tail wagging. Lieutenant Taylor bent down to pet him briefly before returning to her station. Drav pointed at the screen. See, your officer just responded to its command. Commander, you're misinterpreting. An alarm sounded on the Krill ship. Drav turned away to speak with someone off-screen before facing Reed again. One of your shuttles has just launched. Explain immediately. Reed checked his console. That's our regular supply run to the research outpost on the nearby moon. We informed you of this yesterday. Recall it now, or we will consider it an aggressive act. Before Reed could respond, Buddy barked loudly at a crew member who had dropped a data pad. The sound carried over the communication channel. Drav's eyes widened. That is a command signal. Your beast is directing an attack. The communication abruptly cut off. On the view screen, the Krill vessels began to move into attack formation. Sir, Chen called out. They're targeting our shuttle. Reed's voice remained steady despite the tension. Shields up. Warn the shuttle to take evasive action. Do not, I repeat, do not power weapons. The bridge crew worked quickly as Reed pressed a button on his chair. Dr. Wilson to the bridge immediately. Minutes later, Dr. Anna Wilson, the ship's xenobiologist, hurried onto the bridge. She was a short woman with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. Captain, you called. She stopped when she saw the situation on the view screen. Reed gestured to the communications station. I need you to help me explain dogs to the Krill before they start a war over a puppy. Dr. Wilson blinked in surprise but nodded. I'll try, sir. The channel to the Krill ship reopened. Drav appeared, flanked by more officers than before. You have 1 minute to recall your attack vessel before we open fire, Drav warned. Commander, Reed began. This is Dr. Wilson, our expert on Earth's animal species. Please allow her to explain about dogs. Dr. Wilson stepped forward. Commander Drav, I understand your concern, but dogs are not weapons. They're companions that evolved alongside humans for mutual benefit. We've studied your buddy, Drav countered. Its brain contains structures capable of understanding human commands and manipulating human emotions. That's true, Wilson acknowledged, but not in the way you think. Dogs evolved those traits naturally because wolves that could understand human cues were more likely to survive near human settlements. Drav's expression showed doubt. Natural evolution, not engineering. This process began over 15,000 years ago, Wilson explained, long before humans had the technology to engineer other species. While they spoke, Buddy wandered over to a junior officer who had a sandwich on his console. With a quick movement, the puppy snatched the food and darted away. "Hey," the officer called out. "Buddy, no. Bad dog." On screen, Drav's eyes narrowed. "Your officer just issued a reprimand to the beast." "Yes," Dr. Wilson said, "because dogs need training and boundaries, just like children. They're not always perfect, but so they can disobey." Drav interrupted, clearly confused. "Your biological weapons can refuse commands." Reed stepped forward. "Commander, imagine if your closest childhood friend sometimes disagrees with you. That doesn't make them your enemy, does it?" For the first time, Drav seemed truly puzzled rather than hostile. "Friend, you consider this creature your friend?" Buddy returned to Reed's side, looking up with big brown eyes, his tail still wagging despite the tension in the room. "Many of us do," Reed said softly, reaching down to pat Buddy's head. "On Earth, we have a saying, dog is man's best friend." The bridge fell silent as Drav considered this information, his gaze fixed on the interaction between Reed and Buddy. Finally, Drav spoke. "I require more information before I determine if you speak the truth. Prepare to receive a delegation in 1 hour." The screen went dark. Reed looked down at Buddy, who was now sitting contentedly at his feet. "Well," he said to the bridge crew, "it seems we might avoid war after all, thanks to a sandwich thief." The conference room aboard the Horizon was tense as Commander Drav and 3 Krell officers sat across from Captain Reed, Dr. Wilson, and Lieutenant Taylor. Buddy lay under the table at Reed's feet, occasionally shifting position with a soft sigh. "Let me understand this correctly," Drav said, his voice low and gravelly. "You claim these dogs evolved alongside humans, but cannot speak, use tools, or operate technology." Dr. Wilson nodded. "That's right. They're intelligent animals, but not sentient in the way humans or Krell are." One of the Krell officers, wearing an elaborate sensor device over his eyes, leaned toward Drav and whispered something. Drav's top eyes narrowed. "Our bioscanners indicate the creature is constantly monitoring everyone in this room. Its eyes track movement, its ears rotate toward sounds, and its nose samples the air repeatedly. If not a weapon, it is at minimum a surveillance tool." Reed tried not to smile. "Commander, all animals do those things. It's just how they perceive the world." Drav placed a data tablet on the table, then explained this. The screen displayed footage from their previous meeting, a young crewman looking stressed as he worked at his station. Buddy had approached him, placed his head on the man's lap, and the crewman had immediately petted him, his expression relaxing visibly. The beast detected emotional distress and administered some kind of calming influence, Drav stated. The officer's cortisol levels dropped by 23% within minutes. Dr. Wilson's eyes lit up. "That's actually fascinating data. Dogs can indeed sense emotional states through smell and body language. They often try to comfort humans who are upset. We call them emotional support animals." "Support animals," Drav repeated slowly, the translation clearly struggling with the concept. "Yes," Wilson continued enthusiastically. "Some dogs are specially trained to help humans with various needs, guiding the blind, alerting to medical emergencies, even finding people trapped under rubble after disasters." The Krell officers exchanged glances, their confusion evident. "So they are servants," Drav concluded. "More like partners," Reed corrected. "Working dogs receive excellent care and form bonds with their handlers. It's a mutually beneficial relationship." Suddenly, Buddy perked up his ears and trotted over to the Krell side of the table. Before anyone could stop him, he nudged his nose against Drav's hand, which hung at his side. The Krell commander jerked back, his guards instantly reaching for their weapons. "He's just being friendly," Reed said quickly. "He wants you to pet him." Pet. Drav's translation device seemed to struggle with the word. Like this, Lieutenant Taylor demonstrated by calling Buddy over and gently stroking his fur. The puppy's tail wagged happily. Drav watched with intense focus. "And this creates pleasure for the animal." "Yes," Taylor confirmed. Dogs enjoy physical contact with beings they trust. Drav's expression changed subtly. Trust. The creature trusts me. He's trying to, Reed explained. Dogs generally like to make friends with everyone they meet. For a moment, Drav seemed lost in thought. Then he straightened abruptly. I have reached a conclusion, he announced. These dogs are clearly more than mere animals. They must be an advanced species with whom humans have formed an alliance. Your denial of this fact makes me question your honesty in all matters. Reed sighed heavily. Commander. Furthermore, Drav continued, you claim they evolved naturally, yet they perfectly complement human weaknesses. They see better in darkness, hear sounds humans cannot detect, and smell things imperceptible to human senses. This level of complementary evolution is statistically improbable. Dr. Wilson tried to interject. Actually, in evolutionary terms. Enough. Drav stood suddenly. I demand you transfer your dog technology to the Krell Empire immediately. The humans stared in disbelief. Technology. Reed repeated. Commander, dogs aren't technology. They're living creatures. Drav's 4 eyes blinked in rapid sequence. You continue this deception even now. Very well. He turned to one of his officers. Prepare the demonstration. What demonstration? Reed asked, suddenly alert. Since you refuse to acknowledge your military capabilities, I will be forced to demonstrate ours. Drav replied coldly. Perhaps then you will treat these negotiations with appropriate seriousness. As Drav and his officers turned to leave, Buddy barked once, his head tilted in curiosity. Drav paused at the doorway, looking back at the puppy. Your beast understands what is happening. See how it issues a warning call. Reed started to explain that Buddy just wanted attention, but stopped himself. The more he tried to explain, the worse things seemed to get. After the Krell left, Lieutenant Taylor turned to her captain. Sir, their ships are moving into position around that small asteroid in Sector 7. Reed watched the tactical display with growing concern. I think we're about to see exactly what Commander Drav means by unleashing the beast. The bridge of the horizon fell silent as the crew watched the main view screen. The Krell flagship had positioned itself near a small asteroid roughly 2 kilometers across. 3 smaller Krell vessels formed a triangle pattern around it. They're charging weapons, reported Officer Chen. Energy readings are off the charts. Captain Reed leaned forward in his chair. Record everything. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with. A communication channel opened automatically. Commander Drav's face appeared on screen, his yellow eyes gleaming with what seemed like pride. Captain Reed, Drav began, since you insist on hiding your true military capabilities, I feel obligated to demonstrate ours. Perhaps then you will approach our negotiations with appropriate honesty. Reed kept his expression neutral. We've been honest from the beginning, Commander. Drav made a dismissive gesture with one clawed hand. Observe the power of the Krell Empire and recognize why we have conquered 12 star systems in the past decade. The screen split to show both Drav and the asteroid. A pulsing blue light began to gather at the front of the Krell flagship. The smaller vessels added their own energy beams, which merged with the main weapon. Energy levels still climbing, Chen whispered. Whatever that weapon is, it's drawing power from all 4 ships. The blue light suddenly intensified to a blinding flash. When it faded, the asteroid was gone, completely vaporized without even leaving debris. Target elimination complete, Drav announced proudly. This was merely 15% of our flagship's full capacity. Now do you understand why the Krell Empire deserves your respect? Reed stood from his chair. Impressive technology, Commander, but unnecessary. We never intended any hostility toward your people. Then prove it, Drav demanded. Bring your beast weapon to my ship for analysis. Reed exchanged glances with his officers before responding. You mean Buddy? He's not a weapon, as we've repeatedly explained. Your continued denial tests my patience. Drav's voice rose. I have just demonstrated our capability to destroy your vessel instantly." At that moment, Buddy wandered onto the bridge, a chew toy in his mouth. He dropped it at Lieutenant Taylor's feet and barked playfully. Several crew members smiled despite the tense situation. Drav observed this interaction with intense focus. "The creature clearly has influence over your entire command staff." Reed took a deep breath. "Commander Drav, I propose a different approach. I invite you to meet with me privately, just you and me, and Buddy." The Krell commander's eyes blinked in sequence, a sign Reed had learned indicated surprise. "You would willingly bring your beast to a private meeting?" "Yes," Reed confirmed. "No guards, no weapons, just a conversation." Drav fell silent for several seconds, clearly considering the offer. "This could be a trap," he finally said. Reed shook his head. "You've scanned our ship thoroughly. You know we don't have weapons that could harm you. This is a chance for real understanding between our species." After another long pause, Drav nodded. "Very well. I will come alone to your quarters in 1 hour, but my ships will remain in attack position." "Understood," Reed agreed. As the communication ended, Lieutenant Taylor approached Reed. "Captain, are you sure this is wise? We still don't fully understand Krell biology or psychology." Reed smiled slightly as he watched Buddy retrieve his toy from where Taylor had tossed it. "Sometimes the best diplomacy happens on a personal level, Lieutenant. When faced with fear and misunderstanding, showing trust can be the most powerful move." 1 hour later, Reed sat in his private quarters with Buddy curled up on the couch beside him. The door chimed, and Reed took a deep breath. "Enter." Commander Drav stepped inside. Without his armed guards and standing in the more intimate setting of the captain's quarters, the Krell commander seemed less intimidating somehow. "Please, have a seat." Reed gestured to a chair designed to accommodate larger species. Drav sat stiffly, his 4 eyes constantly shifting between Reed and Buddy. "Why is it not restrained?" he asked, pointing at the puppy. "Because he doesn't need to be," Reed explained. "Buddy, come say hello." The golden retriever puppy lifted his head, looked at Drav with curious brown eyes, then hopped down from the couch. He approached the alien slowly, tail wagging gently. Drav tensed visibly. "What is it doing? Is it scanning me?" "He's just getting to know you," Reed said softly. "He's curious about new people." Buddy stopped in front of Drav and sat down, looking up expectantly. "He wants you to pet him," Reed explained. "Just reach out slowly and touch the top of his head." Drav's hand trembled slightly as he extended one clawed finger toward Buddy. The puppy leaned forward, sniffing the alien's hand, then licked it once. Drav jerked back. "It attacked me with some kind of secretion." Reed couldn't help laughing. "That's just a lick. It's how dogs show affection. I promise it's harmless." The commander stared at Buddy with new confusion. "Affection? Toward me? But we only just met." "That's the beauty of dogs, Commander," Reed said, his voice gentle. "They offer friendship without conditions or history, something I think both our species could learn from." In the quiet of Captain Reed's quarters, Commander Drav sat motionless as Buddy rested his chin on the alien's knee. The puppy had grown comfortable with the Krell commander over the past 30 minutes, and now watched him with those expressive brown eyes that seemed to contain more understanding than Drav had initially believed possible. "You truly have no fear of him approaching you like this?" Drav asked, his voice softer than Reed had ever heard it. "None at all," Reed confirmed. "In fact, watching him trust you makes me trust you more." Drav's upper eyes blinked rapidly. "Explain." Reed leaned forward in his chair. "Dogs are excellent judges of character. They sense things about people that we sometimes miss. If Buddy is comfortable with you, it suggests you're not a threat. At least not an immediate one." "Fascinating," Drav murmured. Hesitantly, he placed one clawed hand on Buddy's head. The puppy responded by wagging his tail faster. "I prepared something to help you understand," Reed said, activating a screen on the wall. This is Earth, our home planet. Images appeared showing humans throughout history alongside dogs. Ancient cave paintings, Egyptian hieroglyphics, medieval tapestries, and modern photographs. Our relationship with dogs began over 15,000 years ago, Reed explained. Wild wolves began following human hunting parties to scavenge leftover food. The wolves that were less afraid of humans got more food. The humans who accepted these less aggressive wolves gained hunting partners and alarm systems for their camps. Drav studied the images intently. This was mutually beneficial. Exactly. Over thousands of years, these wolves evolved into dogs. We didn't engineer them. They changed alongside us, each generation becoming more attuned to human emotions and needs. The images shifted to show working dogs, herding sheep, pulling sleds, guiding blind people, rescuing drowning swimmers. They help us in countless ways, Reed continued. But most importantly, they provide companionship. The screen showed children hugging dogs, elderly people sitting with canine companions, and families playing with their pets. I don't understand, Drav said, his confusion evident. On my world, other species are either prey, predators, or competitors for resources. The concept of cross-species cooperation is, he struggled for the word, alien to us. Reed nodded. Different evolutionary paths lead to different societies. The Krell evolved in a highly competitive environment, correct? Yes, Drav confirmed. Our homeworld has little usable land surrounded by toxic seas. Resources were always scarce. Our history is a constant struggle for survival against other intelligent species. We eventually dominated through superior technology and military discipline. While humans evolved as social creatures who survived through cooperation, Reed added. Our bonds with dogs reinforced that tendency. Drav looked down at Buddy, who had fallen asleep with his head still resting on the alien's knee. This creature trusts me enough to sleep in my presence. Yes, Reed said simply. On my world, to sleep near another is to risk death, Drav said quietly. Even now, Krell warriors sleep in rotation so others can keep watch. Reed watched as Drav gently stroked Buddy's fur, the alien's movements becoming more confident. His fur is... Drav paused, searching for words. Pleasant to touch. The act of petting a dog actually reduces stress hormones in humans, Reed explained. It lowers blood pressure and produces chemicals in our brains that create feelings of calm and happiness. Drav's eyes widened. Is that why your crew seems so at ease even in dangerous situations? Reed smiled. Partly. Having companions who offer unconditional support helps us face challenges with greater confidence. Unconditional. Drav repeated the word as if it were entirely new to him. Dogs don't care about rank, wealth, or power. They don't judge us for our mistakes. They simply offer loyalty and affection, Reed explained. In return, we provide food, shelter, protection, and love. Love, Drav said the word awkwardly. This concept exists in Krell language only for offspring, and even then, it is temporary, until they can defend themselves. Reed nodded thoughtfully. Different worlds, different ways. Buddy stirred in his sleep, making a small whimpering sound. His paws twitched as if he were running in a dream. What is happening? Drav asked, concerned. He's dreaming, Reed explained. Dogs dream just like we do, probably chasing something in his sleep. Drav stared at the puppy with newfound wonder. Dreams, consciousness, affection. These are attributes we believe belonged only to advanced beings. Sometimes, Reed said gently, the universe is more complex than our categories allow for. Drav sat silently for a long moment, still absently petting Buddy. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed. Captain Reed, I believe I have greatly misunderstood your species, and perhaps much else besides. The main hangar bay of the horizon buzzed with activity as crew members prepared for the formal meeting between humans and the Krell. Captain Reed stood at the center, dressed in his best uniform, Buddy sitting obediently by his side. The puppy wore a small blue collar with the ship's insignia, a touch Lieutenant Taylor had suggested might add a bit of official dignity to their furry diplomat. "They're docking now, sir," Officer Chen reported. Reed nodded, feeling the slight vibration as the Krell shuttle connected with the horizon. "Everyone remember what we discussed. This is a historic moment for both our species." The large hangar doors slid open, and Commander Drav entered alongside 5 other Krell officials. But what caught everyone's attention was the small container Drav himself carried, a transparent box with air holes punctured in its sides. "Captain Reed," Drav greeted with a formal bow of his head. "I thank you for hosting this summit." "The pleasure is ours, Commander," Reed replied. "May I ask what you've brought with you?" Drav stepped forward, holding out the container. Inside was a small creature with silvery fur and 6 legs. It resembled a cross between a rabbit and a lizard, with large purple eyes that darted nervously around the room. "This is a Tilvik," Drav explained. "On my world, they are considered vermin, creatures that steal food and damage equipment. We exterminate them when found aboard our vessels." The human crew exchanged confused glances. "But after our discussion," Drav continued, "I began to wonder if perhaps we have been limited in our understanding." Reed smiled as he realized what was happening. "You were inspired by our relationship with dogs." "Yes," Drav acknowledged. "This particular Tilvik was captured in our food storage area 3 days ago. Instead of eliminating it, I have been observing it, attempting to understand it." One of the other Krell officials shifted uncomfortably. "Commander, the Council may not approve of this experiment." "The Council gave me authority to establish peaceful relations by any necessary means," Drav replied firmly. "If understanding other species is part of human strength, we should learn from it." Buddy, noticing the creature in the box, stood up and approached, his nose twitching with interest. The Tilvik pressed itself against the far side of the container, trembling. "Your beast recognizes it as a fellow creature," Drav observed. "Yes," Reed said. "Dogs are curious about most animals. They can be trained to protect other species or even form bonds with them." He reached down to gently guide Buddy back. "But it takes time and patience. Trust doesn't happen immediately." Drav set the container down carefully. "Perhaps that is the most important lesson we can learn from humans. Time, patience, trust." The formal meeting proceeded to the conference room, where representatives from both sides discussed boundaries, trade possibilities, and cultural exchange programs. Throughout the talks, Buddy wandered freely around the room, occasionally receiving pets from both humans, and more tentatively, from some of the Krell. "We propose establishing a neutral zone along the border of our territories," Drav suggested. "A place where both Krell and humans can meet, learn, and perhaps grow together." "An excellent idea," Reed agreed. "We could start with scientific cooperation. I know our xenobiologists would be fascinated by Krell wildlife." As they finalized the agreement, Drav turned to Reed with all 4 eyes focused intently. "There is one more matter, Captain. The phrase I used during our first encounter, unleash the beast. It is a standard Krell threat. Yet when I said it, your crew seemed amused." Reed hesitated, not wanting to offend. "Well, it struck us as somewhat dramatic." "I see," Drav said thoughtfully. "And now I understand why. To threaten someone with a beast when you live alongside creatures like Buddy must have seemed quite strange." "Different perspectives," Reed offered diplomatically. "Indeed," Drav agreed. "When I return to my homeworld, I will bring this Tilvik with me. Perhaps it can teach my people what your Buddy has taught me." As the meeting concluded, and the 2 groups prepared to part ways, Buddy approached Drav one last time. The commander knelt down, a gesture that clearly surprised his fellow Krell, and gently patted the puppy's head. "On behalf of the Krell Empire, I thank you, small diplomat," Drav said formally. "You have prevented a war neither of our peoples needed." Later, as the Krell ships prepared to depart, Reed stood with his officers on the observation deck. Buddy barked once at the view screen showing the alien vessels. "You know," Lieutenant Taylor said, "for all their advanced technology and military might, what finally reached them was something we've had for 15,000 years." Reed smiled as he watched the Krell flagship move away, no longer in attack position, but traveling alongside the horizon as an escort to the edge of their territory. "Sometimes the oldest wisdom is the most profound," Reed replied, scratching Buddy behind the ears. "And sometimes the greatest teachers have 4 legs and a wagging tail."